A small baby crawled towards a huge dog that was 10 times bigger than him. His parents couldn't move, frozen with fear. The enormous Saint Bernard bent his head down. What happened next made everyone unable to speak. Before you watch, remember to like and subscribe so you don't miss another touching story like this one, and write in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. The afternoon sunlight shone on the wooden floor, making the massive Saint Bernard's fur sparkle. His name was Atlas, a Saint Bernard with brown and white fur, and when he was sitting he looked like a small mountain in the middle of the room. His head almost reached the side of the tan sofa, and his paws were bigger than a dinner plate. In front of him on the rug sat Ethan, not even 1 year old yet, dressed in a soft white outfit covering him completely. His little legs were positioned awkwardly, like his tiny body was still learning to balance properly, but his eyes, wide, curious, and steady, remained fixed on the giant animal in front of him. "Don't let him get close," Emma said urgently in a whisper from the sofa. Her fingers gripped the edge of a cushion tightly, tension making her shoulders rigid. Across the room, her husband, James, knelt down on one knee, observing carefully. "Emma, everything's fine. Atlas knows what he's doing. Look, he's not moving." "That's precisely what frightens me," Emma answered quickly, her voice low but strong. "We can't predict what he'll do. One sudden movement, one error." She stopped talking. Her eyes stayed focused on her child, sitting there with the dog who weighed 10 times more than him. Ethan's tiny hand, shaky and small, stretched out. His chubby fingers spread open and closed like he was attempting to feel the soft, thick fur. His mouth started making soft noises, then they grew louder. "Duh." Emma began to get up. "James, I swear if he moves closer—" "Shh." James held up his hand to stop her. His face showed concern too, but there was something more peaceful in his expression. He'd grown up with dogs all his life, and Atlas had never shown aggression. Still, his heart began beating faster when Ethan moved forward and placed his hand directly on Atlas's chest. The large dog inhaled sharply. His ears shifted, his head lowered a bit, his warm brown eyes studying the infant. The sound of his breath filled the quiet room. "Oh, James," Emma's voice cracked. Atlas didn't snap at him. He didn't growl, but the total silence, the time seeming to stretch forever, made it nearly unbearable. Ethan, wobbling slightly, made a pleased sound. Then, shocking both parents completely, he opened his arms wide and leaned forward, clumsily attempting to wrap them around the dog's thick neck. His whole body tipped with the effort. Emma gasped sharply and started moving, but James grabbed her arm. "Wait, just watch." Ethan couldn't reach very far. His body tilted sideways. His head was about to strike the hard floor when Atlas reacted. One enormous paw, covered with dense fur between the toes, came forward with surprising gentleness. It positioned itself right beside Ethan's back, keeping him balanced like a brace. Emma froze in place, her mouth falling open in disbelief. He caught him from falling. Ethan giggled, slapping his little hands on Atlas's paw as if it were a toy. He babbled meaningless sounds, then pressed his face into the soft coat. His entire body went limp as though he'd found the most comfortable spot to relax. Atlas closed his eyes slowly, his kind, sad-looking eyes observing the child. His head lowered further, his nose hovering just inches from the baby's tiny face. His breathing gently moved Ethan's fine hair. James spoke softly, barely audible. He's choosing to protect him. It's natural for him. Saint Bernards are meant to guard people. But Emma wasn't convinced yet. She remained nearby, her hand trembling. "James, he's still an animal. We can't know what he's thinking. Just watch him. James responded. If he meant any harm, he's had many chances already. Ethan touched Atlas's nose awkwardly, then grabbed the long strands of fur. Emma's heart skipped with worry, but Atlas simply exhaled through his nostrils, his eyes half closing, like he was tolerating the rough handling. Then the instant arrived that made time seem to stop. Ethan leaned back, his eyes shining, and spoke one word. Hug. His arms opened wide again, reaching for Atlas's large head. Emma stopped breathing. Her hands jumped to her chest. James, make him stop, please. But James was paralyzed. His heart was racing so violently he could feel it pounding in his head. Ethan pushed forward, his arms still stretched out, waiting. Atlas's whole body became stiff. Every part of him tensed, his eyes fixed on the infant with such force that it made Emma's body go ice cold. For 3 seconds, perhaps 4, nothing moved. The room seemed like it was afraid to breathe. Emma's sight became blurry with frightened tears. James, she said, barely above a whisper, her voice unsteady. Do something now. James's hand shook as he began reaching out. But then, Atlas began moving in slow motion. So gradually it didn't seem possible. His huge head started coming down bit by bit. Emma's hands went over her mouth, holding back a cry. The dog's mouth was so dangerously close to Ethan's face. One careless move, one animal reaction. That's all it would need. Ethan's small fingers reached up toward the massive head, coming down to him. Please, Emma whispered desperately, tears running down her cheeks. Atlas's eyes stayed locked on the baby. His body kept sinking down, down. His stomach met the floor, then his chest. He flattened himself, becoming as compact as something so large could possibly become. Until at last his enormous head settled softly, precisely inside the space created by Ethan's little, open arms. For one still moment no one took a breath. Then Ethan made a joyful shriek, a clear sound of happiness that broke the silence like shattering glass. He pushed his face into the fur, his tiny hands vanishing in the deep, soft coat, laughing without control. Emma fell backward, her hand pressed against her heart, gulping air she hadn't realized she was holding. James's knees almost buckled under him. Did you see what happened? He said quietly, his voice unsteady. Did you see what he just did? Emma had no words. She could only move her head, yes, tears streaming down her face. Not frightened tears this time. Tears of something completely different. Something impossible to describe. Atlas didn't move in Ethan's hug. His eyes were gentle now, his breathing peaceful and even, as though this was precisely where he belonged. As though he'd been waiting his entire life for this exact moment. He picked him, James said, emotion making his voice thick. He truly decided to guard him. Emma dried her face with shaking hands. For the first time in many minutes she could breathe normally again. They both knew what had just occurred was remarkable, fragile, and unforgettable. Protect him, she said softly. Emma lowered herself onto the sofa, her body still quivering. I can't believe what I just saw, she said in a quiet voice. James came closer, his throat feeling tight. It's not random, Atlas. He knows he's treating him like part of his own pack. Ethan moved suddenly, his little body rocking. He attempted to climb up higher, his hands becoming more caught in Atlas's thick, fluffy fur. For a moment it looked dangerous. Ethan's fingers pulled hard, his weight shifting. Emma started to rise again, ready to intervene, but Atlas adjusted first. Carefully, the dog lifted his paw and brought it forward, placing it securely over Ethan's legs. The movement looked intentional, considered. It was as though he was keeping the child in position just enough to stabilize him. Ethan made cheerful noises and patted the massive paw with his small hand. "Big, big," he said in his baby talk. James chuckled softly. "He's right, bigger than he'll ever understand." Emma pressed her palms together, her voice more stable now. "What if one day things change? What if Atlas forgets?" James looked at her, his eyes peaceful. "He hasn't forgotten once in the 5 years we've had him. If anything, he's revealing his real character." Ethan pushed ahead again, his head bumping clumsily against Atlas's nose. The dog didn't move away. Instead, he nudged back softly, so gently you almost couldn't notice until Ethan began another fit of giggles. The child's laughter made Emma's chest tighten with both relief and happiness. She said quietly, "I was prepared to snatch him up. I was certain this would go wrong." "And at this moment?" James questioned. Emma's eyes welled up with tears once more, but different tears now. She couldn't find words, watching as Atlas shifted his entire body into a lying position, lowering himself until Ethan was resting against his side. His thick fur became like a blanket around the baby, who snuggled closer as though he'd found the safest spot in the world. Ethan yawned widely all of a sudden, his body going completely limp. His face buried into the soft, colored fur, and in just moments his breathing became slow with sleep. Atlas remained completely motionless, his eyes wide open and watchful, his ears twitching slightly as though he was listening for any noise in the home. Emma moved closer, her legs still wobbly. She crouched down beside them, watching Atlas's eyes move from Ethan to the room, to her, to James, as though warning anyone from coming too close. His body was tense with silent vigilance. James wrapped his arm around Emma's shoulders. "You see it now. He's not just our pet, he's part of our family." Emma nodded, tears streaking her face. "More than family, he's guarding him." And in that living room a silent understanding was created, one of strength meeting vulnerability, of trust defeating fear. Atlas, the large Saint Bernard, had taken on his responsibility without making a single noise. This child was now in his protection. Did this story touch you? If you were Emma in that precise moment, seeing your baby reach out to hold that giant dog, would you have believed in the dog and allowed it? Yes or no? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story moved you, subscribe to this channel and click like. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.